Welcome, everyone, to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'm Michael Lyons.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Margaret.
And that's the end of the show.
All righty.
We should do that.
What?
No, we wouldn't do that. But it would be funny.
All right. For the first 5 minutes.
For the first 5 minutes, and it would wear thin.
Okay.
Anyway, tonight, welcome to the Soul of the Everyman show, and tonight we will be talking about ego, one of our favorite topics.
Yes. Yep.
And, you know, one of our favorite people, Eckhart, is big on being down on the ego. And this came up, I think, because of something that came in when you were writing some notes earlier today.
Right.
But the catchphrase that I'm going to state, and then I want you to kind of go into it a little bit more, perhaps, but which hit me was, can you afford your ego?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we're really talking about is the cost of that sort of the care and feeding of your ego.
True. Because you don't think of the ego taking a toll on you, but it does. It's not something that is in your conscious awareness, that this is costing you something.
And it may be costing the people around you something, too.
It's usually the people around you that notice it first.
You so-and-so. No.
But it's really, when you think about it, how often have you really become aware of the effect that your ego is having on yourself and all those around you? Usually the first thing is yourself, because people believe, well, ego, isn't that who I am?
The voice in my head, isn't that me?
Isn't that me? No, it's not.
No, it's not.
And when you don't realize that, when you don't realize how much it costs you in your life to have your ego.
I mean, well, we should name some of the things that the ego, you know, some of the bills the ego puts up for you.
Yeah, I think you should read that first line right there that you wrote.
The first one.
Just the whole prelude.
Well, I as I mentioned, can you afford your ego? And the cost of the unobserved ego, and we'll go into what that means, in experience, relationships, somatic illness, and wasted energy can be enormous. And few of us realize how much of our limited and precious lives, and our lives are quite short, are spent feeding our egos. Right. They live under our roofs, rent free, and they eat everything.
Right. In fact,
they're like teenagers.
Well,
worse.
The phrase that you used actually was the insatiable monster.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I think everyone can relate to the ego as a monster because, Margaret, occasionally what you'll see in other people, and never in yourself, of course, is that their ego, never yourself, because, you know, you're among the egoless, but
sure.
Never in ourselves we don't see these things. It is akin to the biblical phrase, you know, removing the log from your own eye before removing the mote from your brother's eye. But in essence, we see the ravages or perhaps the appetites of ego in others much more easily.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that ego is the outward expression. The ego that we're really talking about here isn't the one that you see when people are all kind of full of themselves, and putting on airs perhaps, and can't wait to tell you all about them, and then their next phrase is, well, enough of me, talking about me, what do you think about me? That whole kind of funny thing. But the ego that we're talking about here is more akin to the voice in your head that requires constant feeding, constant attention, constant living up to, constantly appeasing, constantly following its dictates, because otherwise it won't be happy. The ego has the goal. Its stated goal. It says in your head all the times, if we get X, Y, or Z, then we'll be happy. However, if you've dealt with your ego in any way, shape, or form for any length of time, you'll note that it's never happy.
No, there's always a next task or something else. Once it's got what it believes it wants, then it begins to look at something else.
It compares a lot, too.
And complains a lot, too.
And complains an inordinate amount.
It will nag you. And it's figured out that if it nags enough, you will pay attention to it.
It will wake you up in the middle of the night to nag you.
Mm-hmm. You didn't do this. No, you didn't do this. I really want this.
I really want this.
And the interesting part about that phrase, I really want this, is the I in the statement. Is that really you? Because that's what you think is you. The ego believes that it's you. It's driving. So, hey, you really want this. Because I really want this. And you and I are the same. No.
And that's a good place to jump off, too. The ego has wants and desires and needs, which are often predicated on the values of the outside world, the sort of the trappings of power, of money, of status, of recognition, of being right, of leading. And let me be clear, none of these things are bad in and of themselves. You can have all of these things as long as they don't have you. They don't have you. And when you're feeding the ego in an unconscious way, it has you.
Because you're not aware.
Because you're not aware. And it's literally wasting your life, your true life, your experiential life, your relationship life. The reason that you came into this existence incarnate was not to feed your ego. It was for a far greater and more fulfilling purpose. That's the other thing, Margaret, is that the ego is never fulfilled. And if you spend a good deal of time feeding the ego, you'll come up to that point in people's lives where they say, why am I here?
What have I been doing with my life?
What's the meaning of my life? Why am I not fulfilled? And then the ego will very conveniently hand you a bucket list. Oh, well, you haven't done these 50 things. That's what you need to do. No, that's not what you need to do.
Well, that is how you wind up losing the preciousness of your life incrementally until it becomes a long series of incremental, misunderstood incidences that you thought was you.
And it's insidious.
Well, you believe that your ego is you. So you feel justified in saying, well, no, this is what I want. when you truly get what you believe you want, okay, that whatever, if it's an object of some kind, you really wanted this, and you get it, and then you find yourself not satisfied, okay, what I'd like to point out is that you may have that for a moment, but it's not a lasting thing. There's really no joy that comes out of your soul because of the thing.
Mm.
You might be happy instantaneously, but fulfilled and satisfied, it's always turning to something else. Well, something else must be able to do that. Something else that I haven't considered. It's like, no, that's the phrasing that the ego uses to regain control when you realize that there's nothing but emptiness there. And most people want to run away from emptiness as hard and as fast as they can. They don't want to feel that.
That's one of the drivers that the ego uses too.
Mm-hmm. And just realizing that, it's a feeling. It doesn't mean that you are empty. It's just a feeling. But that fear of your identity being empty, there's a part of your soul that goes, no, we are not empty. That can't be right. And then the ego steps in again and says, well, here, let me show you how that statement is wrong.
Well, or how we shall fulfill this, how we'll fill you with yet another object.
Mm-hmm.
A good analog of this is writ large in our sort of modern, if you will, the Internet of Things society that we live in, where we're constantly bombarded by messages, emails, texts, where all of our interactions are of the instantaneous variety. And there is a, as we mentioned, I believe last week or the week before, there's a myriad of personae which the ego likes to create and put into this kind of electronic world. There's even a number of different technological devices that are sort of designed to put you as an avatar into an electronic world and let you actually interact with things in there. This idea of projecting yourself through this device into another type of, we'll call it a dimension. It's not really, but we'll call it a dimension. In that dimension, the ego is in its habitat. It's in its comfortable place because nothing in there has an actual tie to the current moment of now and the real experience of now. It's all made up. It's all manufactured. It's an analog of what the ego does within your consciousness. It creates its own little world and then moves the pieces around.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very dangerous. It's like, what was it the other day we were saying about Inception, the movie? It's like Inception. Your ego is now gone one level deeper into social media.
Yes, it tries to find fields of play. That's kind of the way it operates. This is the field that I can interact with, and I must dominate. First of all, the ego wants domination. I'm controlling all this, and if you're afraid of not being in control, that's a prime motivator for your consciousness to give over to your ego and say, okay, well, you have a way of regaining control, and the ego will say yes. It will happily say yes, because as long as it's driving, it'll tell you anything you want to know. So, the question, I'm going to return to the original question of how much does this cost you?
Yeah.
And when you realize that your consciousness is much, much more than anything that you can think of, any machination that you can come up with, that's when you ask yourself, what is life? Because it's obviously not feeding this ego.
And yet, well, the ego wants to tell you it is. But we sort of outlined a few, and I know you have a few as well. The cost of the ego in experience, when you were born and came into this existence, your ego was latent, let's say, at least, not a present thing in your consciousness. It's there, but it wasn't yet a driver. When you see an infant is the experiential being looking out through their eyes. And what captivates us about infants when you pick them up is that there is a presence there, a being there. That being can't communicate to you in words yet, but you can feel their presence. When you look into the eyes of the infant, you see them there, and they're looking right at you, and they call forth from you your presence. They quiet the mind. They quiet your ego. And you just look at them, and you can feel their, first of all, connecting with you. Their energies meld with you, and then you'll get a smile maybe, and it lights up their face. And it lights up yours. If you look at a human being picking up another human being who happens to be fully present because they haven't got the ego, they banish your ego in that moment. You feel that this life, this consciousness, is interacting with you, not verbally, not in any other way that's physical, except through perhaps just that touch and that energy. And you feel happy and fulfilled in that moment. If you just think to yourself, just the last time you picked up an infant and connected with them, eye to eye, mind to mind, body to body, spirit to spirit, it was a very fulfilling experience. And there's a reason for that. Because it blows right past your ego. It takes all the things, all your concerns about, whether you're going to get this job or that thing or this, car or whatever the heck it is, and puts them all away and makes your presence come to the forefront. And it's fulfilling and wonderful all at the same time. You suddenly feel as though you're seeing life through their eyes. And you are, because that's the human presence connection. That's an experience that the ego doesn't allow you to have. Not that it doesn't want you to have, but it has no way to connect at that level. You can't find with that infant an ego thing. Let's go do this, or do you like blue cars? Do you want to plan a trip next week? None of those things make it with an infant. What makes it with an infant is you looking at them, they looking at you, and there's suddenly a joy comes over them, and their whole body wriggles with joy, and you feel it, and they feel yours, and you smile. And there you are, in a being state. And it's almost timeless, right, Ma?
Well, yes. You're connecting to another soul. And it is visual, mostly, eye to eye. And once your eyes meet and you each see the soul behind the eyes, that's when the smile comes. And there's absolutely that. There's joy in the moment. I'm here and you're here. It's just happy. Just joy because you know what? You're here too. I'm here. This is cool.
This is cool.
Yeah, looking around.
But as you've said many times, there's no words here.
No, you don't need words. You're communicating soul to soul at that point because you have made the connect to the soul. It's why the phrase, the eyes are the window to the soul. Most people don't realize you can actually connect up through those eyes consciously. It's not just a glance and then a look away. It's like, I am here. I am with you. Do you want to participate with that? That's usually the first level of interaction or any relationship. And you see when someone doesn't want to do that. For whatever reason, they go inward or they pull away from the eyes, and you know when the soul is not up front, it pulls away, and then it starts spinning, whether it's a thought or a memory or something has pulled their attention away from your soul. And it could be fear, it could be anguish, could be just about anything. But to have another human being participate right there with you is so precious. Those are the things that you remember. What is that? People don't always remember what you said to them, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely.
And so when they see you again, the memory comes up from their soul. This person made me feel this way. Oh, I like that person. Oh, let's talk. Let's just we stand together.
Another experience.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking now. We kind of went into the next thing, which is that the ego will deny you, or will get in the way of relationships. But the reason is that, you know, let's talk about for a moment love at first sight, or when you first meet a person and you find sort of an immediate connection. We've all had that experience. You meet someone, really a perfect stranger, and in a couple of brief moments, you're able to connect. Sometimes you have to be open yourself, but you have to receive, and they have to receive. You have to receive their openness. They have to receive yours. And in that moment, there's an exchange. We talked about it as an exchange of energy. There's a resonance, which is another great way of thinking about this. That resonance is the beginning of a relationship. Those relationships might then get other things, ego things hung on them, you know. We go do this, or we all like that, or whatever it is. But the basis of a relationship, whether it's a relationship with your spouse or with a good friend or so on, is that energy resonance. And I think we've all also had the experience when you're with somebody who's a really good friend, or with somebody with whom you have a very deep relationship, that you can sit together wordlessly, enjoying a moment where there is no other additional detail or noise or, you know, activity necessary. You literally just sit together, perhaps on a beach or on a porch or anywhere, and just look out, or perhaps, you know, interact in a very ego-less way. You're not trying to say, well, I got this and you got that, and it's the competition, or we're having a game, or we're doing any of those types of things. Those are fun things too. But just experiencing the moment of now together in another's presence. And perhaps they have one take on something and you have another, but it isn't necessary for the moment. it just becomes part of the moment. It's not what we're doing. It's what's happening in each other's presence. In those moments, you're having a relationship in the moment of now, and the ego is, I would say, banished, or at least extremely quiescent, because that person's presence is enough, and that person's presence in the moment is so fulfilling and enjoyable that the ego is just irrelevant,
Well, when the soul connection is reverberating.
And you feel so comfortable in their presence. People say, I can be myself with this person.
Right.
Well, what does that mean? If you dissect that for a moment, like you're not yourself any other time except when, and people say, yeah, I'm not myself. It's true. But if you just go a little bit deeper, just take one more step, who are you when you're with other people? You're the ego, which is not yourself. You see? When you're in the presence of someone with whom you have a resonance of the present moment, you're yourself, and you feel so fulfilled, relaxed, comfortable. And you don't want the moment to end, and yet it's timeless, or it has an aspect of timelessness. You can look up, after sitting with this person for, just look up and say, oh man, it's been 2 hours. What? We've just been sitting here, enjoying each other's presence.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes by like that, if you look at it on the clock. But in the experience, in the relationship, it's timeless. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's just now.
And the phrase, I can be myself with this person.
Mm-hmm.
The implication, of course, is that you are not yourself most of the time.
Mm-hmm. and just who are you anyway?
Well, if you think of it then, this is the only time you're going to give yourself to be you.
Or better, that you're encouraged to be you. But go ahead.
Well, the amount of time that you are not you is the cost of your life.
Of your ego's cost.
Well, basically, if you allow anything else except your true self, your consciousness, to be there, all that other time costs you your life's energy.
Precious energy.
And is that really what you want to do? Because most people feel that they can't be themselves at all.
Isn't that the truth?
And who you actually are when you've touched into that soul that was looking out when you were an infant, you realize that is what is.
Yeah.
Or who is. Do you know that consciousness that's looking out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It has nothing to do with ego. Ego wants to put a task to it and say, okay, let's find out who that is.
Mm-hmm.
What do we like the color blue? Do we like this food? It's like no. It's kind of the same way you look at science and how science approaches a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It defines it by its observations from the outside. It doesn't necessarily understand how it all works or the theory behind it. And everybody says, oh, well, we're observing, taking all this data because then we can figure out what's actually happening on the inside for what we're we're observing and considering and figuring out from the outside.
Right.
And as a human being, you have an in, because that's you. And you know how you feel. You don't have to necessarily show all these little data points on the outside to, get people to believe that this is who you are.
Mm.
Who you are is who you are, and you exist in that point. So how do you see things? How do you feel? What are your observations? What are you hearing? What are you tasting?
Mm. Yeah, and what's the cost of not doing those things?
What is the cost of disengaging from that very prime source experience of life?
Hmm.
What is the cost of that?
Well, it's high. The cost of it is going to be, we're going to have to take a break right now at the bottom of the hour. Go back to the studio for a little bit, but on the other side, we'll talk more about how much you spend on your ego.
Batman Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Moonstones and murder. Real murderers need a heart of stone. Meet Maggie and Mike Heartstone, parents of twin boys, entrepreneurs, and now empty nesters. Mike is retired, not by choice, from his position as chief of police in the picturesque resort town of Hamilton. And now his wife Maggie and her shop, the Cozy Crystal, are their only source of income. When a mysterious killing interrupts Hamilton's famous Springfield Park rock show, the townsfolk, the Cozy Crystal, and their lives are rocked to the core. Can Mike and Maggie figure out who is behind the murderous deeds before the town comes crashing down around them? A touch of romance, a little mayhem, and a whole lot of suspense, along with plenty of comedy and thrills galore. Get your crystal magnifying glass out. It's time for some moonstones and murder. Available on Amazon, Apple, Kobo, and other fine e-tailers in ebook and paperback. Out soon on Audible. Get your copy today.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is William B. Davis, the actor who plays the Smoking Man, or did play the Smoking Man on The X-Files. I'm also a writer, director, producer, and I am delighted to tell you that you are listening to the ArtistFirst radio network.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Past broadcasts are podcasts. Pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, C-Man. And we are back tonight talking about the cost of ego. And in the last half hour, we went a little bit through some of the costs in experience and some of the costs in relationships. And I think we might as well just continue on down the little bit of the list here, although we've been jumping around a little bit. But the cost is sort of summed up in this quote that we have from Tolle of ego in somatic illness. In actual illnesses that manifest themselves in your body.
Well, shall we do Tolle's quote?
Yes. Would you?
Sure. Once the ego has found an identity, it does not want to let go. Amazingly, but not infrequently, the ego, in search of a stronger identity, can and does create illnesses in order to strengthen itself through them, through the illnesses. That's Tolle.
And there's a couple of things to jump off here with, but the experience of somatic illness can be an ego destroyer, but that's not what we're really talking about here. In this case, this would kind of liken itself almost to hypochondria, or to the attention one gets through being, through advertising the illness that you may have. The ego is using bodily aches and pains, headaches, other types of somatic illnesses is probably the wrong word. It's more of a way of drawing your attention away from the moment of now into, my body doesn't do what I want it to do. It doesn't look the way I want it to look. It's weight gain, weight loss, the wrong kind of hair, the wrong kind of makeup, these aches, those aches. It all pulls it away from awareness and into, if only this, if only that. I identify with the actual illness, or I identify with the attention I get from the illness.
Well, the word disease, which means dis-ease,
Yep.
you're not in a state of wholeness or health, starts internally. And when you realize that concepts of yourself that you build through what you believe your ego is showing you, you are this or you are that, you've found a label that you can identify with. Like you're a parent, you're a mother. And then something happens to show you that, you know what, you're just not one of the best parents around. That can really hurt, because suddenly what you've identified with has shown you the boundaries on it. I bring that up because I'm thinking of Christopher, our son, and through his illness, I discovered the limitations of being his mother. I couldn't cure him. And that really tears at your identity of being a mother. It didn't mean that I was anything less than a mother, but it meant that I was going to have some really hard experiences through this. And identifying only with the ego, saying, well, you didn't do this right. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you couldn't save him. You failed. You failed saving his life. The temptation right there is to believe that you are a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not. My soul is much more vast. My being is much more vast than the incident of something that I could not control. But it tears you. And you have got to allow yourself to process the pain of that tearing and step away from the temporal experiences and look forward to what you understand is eternal. Your spirit and the experiences that you have had through that heart-to-heart connection are eternal. And when this physical existence ends, you still continue onward in that relationship because it's based in love. Any relationship you have that is based in love never dies. And that is one of the reasons why you decided to incarnate down here. You're making memories with those you love, whether the circumstances are good or bad. They are eternal. They are yours. And nothing can take that away.
Yes, the cost of ego would be that you don't make that realization.
Right.
That the place that I'll say you, but that we got to through Christopher's illness was initially, of course, I'll speak for myself, ego bound in that moment, the feelings that you described about being a bad father, about being the ego rising up and saying, how could this be? Couldn't I have done something? Couldn't you have done something? Can you now do something? So all this, at the time, did not know, but now looking back at it and with different eyes and with different experiences, this was the ego attempting to insert itself into that moment and assume more control, get more attention, make it all about me, in essence. And we saw that firsthand through our experience of going through the cancer wards with Christopher in the pediatric cancer wards, because you would see parents who were locked into that ego trap,
Mm-hmm.
that the cost of their ego was that they weren't there in the moment that their children needed them to be present the most. Children needed their parents in the present moment of now, when they were suffering. And all the parent could do, and the cost of it was that they couldn't be there fully, or sometimes at all.
Right. In other words, through the observation of being in the pediatric cancer wards, you witnessed other families going through very similar things that you were. And you saw when a parent couldn't let go of their ego because they felt like they were failing, and because of their failure, they're going to lose their child. So when they listen to their ego, they immediately try to scramble and to find something that they can do. And when you're on that ward, what is immediate is the state of your child. When they look at you, their soul is behind their eyes when they look at you. Are you willing to answer that? To meet their eyes? Understand? Because they understand that it's failed. Whatever, it may be a treatment or some bad news that you have gotten by going through all this. And they know that their mommy or their daddy feels really bad because this didn't work. I've seen parents, they just can't meet their children's eyes because they felt like they failed them and they failed themselves. But if they only looked into the child's eyes, they would realize that the child doesn't really, that's not the first thing that's forefront on their soul. They're looking at you and loving you regardless. And all they want is your presence. They want you to be there, to hold their hand, because if you're okay, then they can feel their disappointment as well. But if you're not okay, then they will shove that feeling aside to process it later and try to hold you up and look forward. Well, maybe we'll try something else. But
that's the cost.
But that's what I'm saying, is that who is the parent at that point? Who is the mature soul? Your child loves you so much that they will take on that burden for you, that you don't feel right about yourself, and encourage you and try to engage you to get you out of that spin. But as the soul of the parent, you have missed an opportunity to be able to stand up and take responsibility for yourself and not project it onto your little one. And your little one will be able to process this far better than anything that you can do. And that is the soul-to-soul relationship. The souls are even at that point. You are equal to each other. in that moment. And it is how you respond that truly matters. How are you responding in this moment? Are you reaching for something outside of your ego into something that I would call courage that comes through the heart? Will you bring up the part of your spirit that is brave? Because courage comes from the heart, and you become the brave spirit, and you stand there, even in the midst of all the disappointments and all the possibilities of everything going bad. You stand there as a brave light, a brave soul, brave spirit for your child. And you allow God's grace to work through you. Create space so that your little one can process this. You will probably have to process sometime later, but you're not the important one in this moment. And you let your ego go in that moment and care for what your heart cares for. That's always the question. That is the cost to you.
Exactly. I mean, the ego is what drives that. You know, if we have to abstract, it kind of had a lot of thoughts in that.
Too many?
No, I think it was fine. But the point, this part of the quote here about somatic illness is a little different, I think. But this point, I don't want to go past this point. When a ego destroying moment occurs in someone who is near you, in this case a child, because it's an existential experience, this is your life on the line, that's what existential experience means, it tends to blow the ego out of the water. So the person whose life is on the line is in that moment. The cost, and I just want to put a fine point on it, you've just said it though, but I'll say it again. The cost of ego in that moment is that you pull back rather than connect, because connecting is connecting into the burning moment.
Yes.
Burning moment of now.
Yes.
Is that this person's life is on the line, and they know it, and your being knows it too. But the ego's cost is run away from that, find 5,000 other things to distract yourself with. I'm busy, I have to go to work, I have to go think, I have to go do this, I have to earn money, I have to go research, and I can't just be in the moment. Now, you're also given a tremendous opportunity, and this is something that Totally talks about in another context, but just in briefly, Margaret just said it. You have the choice to let the ego fade away, join that person in that moment of now, and realize that is all they want. They want you to be there. And that allows them to process, as she said, the experience shared. It's akin to compassion versus sympathy. Sympathy says, gee, that's tough for you. I'll write you a card, but I've got a lot of other things to do. Compassion walks in, sits down, and puts itself in the fire with you and says, I'll be with you through it all. I'll share your pain, and the shared burden is lighter. Yes. We're both burning, but yes, the two are infinitely stronger than the one. especially if the one is not, as again Margaret said, not just bearing their own suffering, but having to support your cowardice, your inability to sit with them and to be with them. So the cost of your ego's burden is not just a cost to you, it's a cost to the other.
Yes.
In this burning moment. I'll say that we, in the moment of suffering, we got through that. Let's just say we got through that. We're not sure exactly how ourselves even, but let's say we did.
And then God's grace.
You get different eyes, and you see when people don't want to connect with you. People whom we thought were friends, whom we could tell anything to, vanished. No shame on them. They just couldn't be in the burning moment. People who we had almost never really known before came into our lives, willingly came in, sat down and said, I see your pain. I feel it as another human being. I will be with you. The difference there is their egos were silenced. Their being presence connected because of the urgency, the exigency, boy, that's a hard one, of the moment. And that relationship therefore became deeper, more present, more human. When you see yourself in the other, that's a moment of compassion. You see someone who is suffering, and your heart says, that could be me, or that is me, which is even more sophisticated. We're all in the suffering moment at one point or another. To see another in suffering and to say, that is me. There's nothing special about them. They didn't deserve it. They didn't do something bad. They didn't forget something. They could have done something to avoid it. They were all ego. It's all the cost of ego concerns. The human being says, that is me. That could be me. That suffering is something that will come to me. Let me join this person, being to being.
Mm-hmm. And
the cost of the hour has come.
Yes. We've reached the end of this hour. So, I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you for listening.